My question for the room is, how many of all of us favor a free and independent Alberta? Raise your hands, stand up. Free and independent Alberta. Stand up for a free and independent Alberta.
Most of the Expo Centre arena stood up in cheers and support. This caused the Premier to address the hot crowd.
So clearly, the Premier of Alberta delivered a tour de force today after all of that last night. And we'll be talking with Jeff Rath about that in a minute. Of course, the Alberta Prosperity Project manager. I just saw that. Where did you go, Jeff? Okay. Jeff will be back in a minute here, but this is incredible what happened today at this conference. And this is what's great about Alberta. No matter whether you're on the side of independence for Alberta or whether you're on the side of federalism for Alberta, Alberta stands up for its rights. And that's something I've always admired about Alberta. And looks like we've got Jeff back here. Yes, and Jeff will be back here in a minute. I want to show this clip here before we get into any discussion, because I think this is very interesting.
Alberta is winning, and we will continue to win this battle for freedom and provincial rights because we are on the right side of history, and Albertans will not be denied our right to a prosperous future. Now, I know full well that so many of you here today have been justifiably, like me, frustrated and angry with Ottawa. I get it. I get it. Trust me. I get it. I hear you. We have been abused and taken for granted repeatedly over the past decades. But my friends, let's not throw in the towel and give up on our country just as the battle has turned in our favor and victory is in sight. It is. It is. Not when our fellow Canadians, even those that may support differing political parties, are nonetheless supporting Alberta's vision for a prosperous, energy-rich nation with strong and sovereign provinces, building a Canada we can be proud of again. Now is not the time to give up the fight. Now is the time to double down and fight for both our province and our country, because we Albertans are indeed the proudest of Canadians, and we don't fight for the sake of fighting. We don't look for conflict when there is an opportunity for freedom and peace and prosperity with our fellow Canadians. That is all we've ever wanted: freedom and peace and prosperity, because Albertans are happiest when we are hard at work getting things done, solving problems, serving our communities, creating and innovating. That is when we are truly at our best. We want to lead this country towards a better and brighter future because we take great pride in that as a province. All we need is a government in Ottawa to get out of the way and let us turn Canada into a thriving energy superpower with Alberta leading the way.
Okay, I want to bring on Jeff Rath after that, because I watched this, and sorry, here's Jeff. Jeff, who's out there at the convention, thank God. I watched this speech because it was delayed. I have two things to say about this speech. I think Danielle Smith did a superlative job of explaining to people why she should stay as premier and leader of the party. I think she utterly failed to talk about why people are talking about she should not be the leader of that party. And I really do think it's a twofold process here. I love Danielle Smith. I think she's a fantastic leader. And she came out swinging today. But the one thing she didn't mention in that entire process was why Albertans should trust her more, because she loves Mark Carney more than Justin Trudeau. I don't get it, and we'll show some bit at the end. Well, I think she did throw some red meat to the constituents there, to the people there. But what do you make of this speech today?
Oh, I think it was a sad day for Alberta, really. And you've missed the clip where she actually talked about continuing to work with Canada, and she got roundly booed again, right? Like, we're fed up. Like, she can't read the room, right? So 85% of the UCP base last night stood up to tell her that they were in favor of Alberta independence, right? So she comes out with this speech today talking about her new boyfriend, Mark Carney, and what a wonderful deal that she's just negotiated for Alberta, that the Financial Post says is going to add $10 a barrel to the cost of production in the province of Alberta. And she thinks we're supposed to be freaking happy about this. She's destroying our oil patch, and she's too stupid to know it. People are angry, and people aren't buying her bullshit anymore. And that's the problem. She thinks it's more important to be friends with Mark Carney than it is to listen to the 85% of her party that want to take Alberta the hell out of Canada. That's the problem.
Okay, I was totally confused when I watched it today, because I expected Danielle Smith to come out and say something about the fact that they were booing her last night. Something. I understand, because I've since talked about this with her insiders, and no, they were advising her not to talk about this at all. Just pretend everything's fine.
They put together a very carefully crafted speech with a whole bunch of applause lines leading up to working together with Canada. But when she got to the working together to keep Alberta and Canada apart, people started booing again. She doesn't get it. Everybody's done with Canada. And it's not just the fact, so what? She's going to get a pipeline maybe in 2040 if we're really, really good boys and girls and continue to bend ourselves over barrels for the Liberals, right? But no, she doesn't get it. She doesn't get the fact that Alberta has to provide hard money towards our promises in that stupid MOU, including building a $50 billion carbon sucking machine, including Carney bragging about the 600% increase in the industrial carbon tax, that Financial Post says is going to add $10 a barrel to the cost of production. And they're actually dumb enough to think that they can add $10 a barrel to the cost of production of Alberta oil, and that people are just going to go, that's fucking crazy. We're going to go to the Yukon, we're going to go to Alaska, we're going to go to Texas. Who the hell wants to develop an oil project in Alberta that already has the most expensive oil in the world if they're going to just arbitrarily add $10 a barrel to the cost of production? Excuse my language, I kind of lost it a little bit today, but it's crazy. And they're absolutely delusional to think this is a good deal, and they're delusional to think that Danielle can sell this to her base.
Okay, so I watched the whole speech today from Danielle. I can only think of one, and I have to be very obscure about this. One German leader who used to wait that long for his followers to finally tune into the speech. She waited literally an hour and 15 minutes from the time she was supposed to do the speech. And she came on and she did the speech. And I thought she initially tried to explain why. Explain what happened with Mark Carney. But the funny thing for me, Jeff, is that she mentioned Justin Trudeau 12 different times. Justin Trudeau is our enemy. She never mentioned, not once, and nobody has pointed this out yet, she never mentioned Mark Carney once in that speech. What does that tell you?
Because she didn't want her new boyfriend to get booed. Because if she'd mentioned Carney, he would have been booed just as equally as Trudeau. Everybody knows that Mark Carney was behind the scenes for years with his hand up Trudeau's backside making his mouth move. But he's Danielle's new boyfriend. It's just horrible. This is what we're dealing with.
I know. But I couldn't believe that there was no mention at all about how Mark Carney had something to do with the Justin Trudeau prime ministership. There was not a word said about that. I found that very...
And again, it's completely out of touch. It's completely delusional. It's like she thinks that her base are idiots, right? She's literally treating us like idiots, which is, I think, a big mistake on her part, right? And, all of us are just sitting here, like even, she's trying to throw red meat to the base. She, had this section on firearms. Well, again, we drafted, myself and the head of the Canadian Firearms Association and, on and on and on. We drafted a regulation for her that she could pass that would license every RPAL and PAL holder in Alberta to legally continue to own their firearms. She could have passed it in the legislature. No, instead, she's coming out with this ridiculous notion that somehow or other she's just going to tell all the prosecutors and cops not to prosecute us when we, once Carney declares we're all illegally in possession of prohibited weapons. It's not going to stop us from being, and we told her this, it's not going to stop us from being arrested when we cross the border back into Canada from the United States or anywhere else. It's not going to stop us from being arrested in Saskatchewan or British Columbia. She's literally turning Albertans into criminals because she doesn't want to offend her new boyfriend by, having controversial legislation that's going to cause her to have to go to court and go to war with her new best buddy. It's infuriating is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I want to show people this exchange from last night.
For the room is, how many of all of us favor a free and independent Alberta? Raise your hands, stand up. Free and independent Alberta. Stand up for a free and independent Alberta.
Most of the Expo Centre arena stood up in cheers and support. This caused the Premier to address the hot crowd.
Okay, so Danielle Smith did not address separation independence today in that speech. She ignored it entirely. Last night, you obviously had a majority of people there supporting that concept.
We had a super majority supporting that concept. I've talked to people that had the number of people standing up for independence last night, between 85 and 90% of that room, were standing up in support of Alberta independence, right? And, Danielle wants to ignore that. It's just, it's just silly. Like, we're a super majority of her party now. And, it's from this point forward, if she ignores us, she's an anti-democratic leader. She's not following the wishes of her people. She's not respecting the wishes of her party members. She's pretending that we don't exist. She's kind of like Jason Kenney going, I want a new base. I want a new base. Well, she's stuck with the one that she's got, and we're firmly in favor of independence.
What do you think it's going to take to move, if it's possible, to move Danielle Smith from her position right now? Which I don't know. I think it's untenable because she really believes she can hold two different opinions at the same time.
Well, as I say, she's been talking out of both sides of her mouth for a very long time now. And, at least with Chrétien, you knew where he stood. He could only talk out of one side of his mouth, right? But, here we have, Danielle, literally ignoring the wishes of 85% of her party and pretending that we don't exist. Her position has become untenable, as leader, because she can't continue to ignore us. But she seems bound and determined to ignore us.
For the room is, how many of all of...
Sorry, I wanted to show you this because I think this is how Danielle Smith tried to resuscitate her leadership last night. And I want your opinion on it.
Let's talk about freedom and justice. We all know that woke ideological policies such as the safe supply of drugs or soft on crime bail and sentencing rules, state-sponsored social engineering of children, and institutionalized censorship of speech are just a few examples of terrible NDP policies that have needlessly destroyed the lives of thousands in communities all across Canada. Albertans have had quite enough of watching this train wreck of left-wing ideas and action, and our government has stood firmly against these dangerous and destructive policies when few other governments in the Western world would. Although I'm pleased to say that that is changing a little bit more and more each day. And despite the continued hysterics of the NDP and their woke activists, Alberta will continue to march boldly forward with policies that promote freedom, save lives, and make our communities safe. This government will fund, not defund, the police. We will seek justice for victims, not excuses for the guilty. We will replace enabling continued drug use for the addicted with providing treatment and a means to recovery. We will lift up and support those struggling with mental health rather than giving them the means to end their lives because of it. And while governments around the world seek to institutionalize the censorship of free speech, our government will forge an accelerated path in the opposite direction. That's why last week our government, inspired by the attack on Dr. Jordan Peterson, as well as so many other doctors and lawyers and nurses and teachers and others, introduced legislation containing comprehensive free speech protection so that no professional will lose their license to practice due to their political beliefs or for not kowtowing to DEI and other destructive mandates.
Yeah, I'll probably do it around 10, 15 minutes.
Thanks, guys. That came from you. That was your policy you passed last AGM. We're calling it the Peterson Law, but we aren't stopping there. I'm announcing today that next week, our UCP government will be introducing a new motion under the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act that will, if passed in the legislature, instruct all provincial entities, including our municipalities and law enforcement agencies, to refuse to enforce or prosecute under the federal gun seizure program.
Okay, so I played this much. This is the crescendo of her speech today. I listened to it very carefully. Danielle Smith is basically saying, I'm not going to identify the elephant in the room, which is the fact that my party is being taken over by Alberta independence people. I'm going to talk like Ronald Reagan. And she literally, I don't think I included this, she literally includes one of Ronald Reagan's favorite quotations about America being a city, a shining city on the hill. And she talks about Alberta that way. When I heard that, I said, my God, you pulled out all the stops here. Is that what you intend to do? To keep people ideologically attuned to the United Conservative Party and somehow stop this breakaway? Because I don't know what she's trying to do here today. I think she was very successful in a short-term policy. But I'm not
I mean,
sure.
Don't get carried
Go
away.
ahead.
Sure, she had lots of great applause lines, and a lot of us really like and support a lot of the things that she's doing. But don't think for a second that she hasn't lost her base, right? I mean, we firmly want independence, and as far as we're concerned, independence, all of those policies that she's talking about, will follow independence. We'll follow a free and independent Alberta. So stop with all the bullshit half measures. Stop with all of the let's just throw out little bits of red meat to the base nonsense, and take the bull by the horns. I mean, enough is enough, right? She and her boyfriend Mark Carney just announced the devastation of the Alberta oil patch and the economy of Alberta. And Danielle is too delusional to understand what a $10 a barrel cost increase in production of Alberta oil is going to mean to the Alberta oil patch. All of the investment now is going to be going to Alaska, Texas, elsewhere in the world. Who the hell is going to want to invest in Alberta if our cost of production goes up by $10? She thinks that MOU is a great deal. It's a horrible deal. And we're going to, it's going to destroy our economy. It's going to be worse than the National Energy Program. but the people around her do not have the wit to see it.
So where do you think this is going, Jeff, in terms of after this AGM?
Well, I mean, we're gonna
Danielle,
know here in an hour whether or not Danielle Smith still controls the board of directors of the United Conservative Party of Alberta. I suspect from the reaction that we were getting to Alberta independence and the number of independent supporters that are here at this AGM, that there's no way in hell that she controls the party coming out of this AGM. So, and keep in mind, the board of the UCP decides who gets to be MLAs, decides whether the leader continues to lead. There's a major shakeup in the works right now, and we'll know literally within an hour as to whether or not Danielle continues to control the party.
did you have any sense that the people going into that speech this afternoon, which was very, very important for Danielle, did you get any sense that they were controlling the people who went in there? Because I sensed a very positive crowd as opposed to last night where it was not quite so positive.
No, it was the same crowd. I mean, we're grateful. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of things that she's done that we support. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that the firearms policy that she put forward doesn't help us and is stupid, and that she's told it was a stupid thing to do by people, including myself, who know, Keith Wilson, other lawyers in the province told her that they need to issue provincial firearms licenses, but they don't have the guts to do it because they don't want to upset her new boyfriend, Mark Carney, and go on a direct collision course with the federal Liberals. So, that's the problem we've got, is that we have feckless leadership at the top of the province of Alberta. And, we all are hoping and waiting for the day that Danielle adopts the U.S. Army Ranger motto of lead, follow, or get out of the way, right? Because right now she's not leading, she's not following. So, what does that leave her? Just get out of the way and let the rest of us get on with getting Alberta out of Canada, because that's the only thing that's going to save Alberta.
How do you see this going at this point with after this? Well, the weekend's not over. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But do you think Danielle can resuscitate her leadership as?
Well, I mean, she did the best she could with that, with her keynote address. But I think, when she finds out later this afternoon that she no longer controls the board of directors of the party, it's going to be a new game. And we've even heard silly things like, a very senior person in her office phoned, one of the senior representatives of APP, and, specifically referring to Daryl Comic, who we're all supporting for president of the UCP. We were told, well, if you support Daryl Comic for president of the UCP, we're not going to let you have a referendum, right? So, this is the kind of childish nonsense that we're putting up with on a regular basis, right? So, is Danielle going to let us have a referendum? Is Mom going to let us have a vote? I think if she goes that far and tells us that we can't have a standalone vote on our question, that'll be the end of her leadership.
Well, Jeff, I'm totally shocked that she didn't even acknowledge the elephant in the room. I think she had to do that tonight without admitting, perhaps, that she was being clouded over by it or enshrouded by it. She should have admitted that there was something else going on in this party. And to completely not acknowledge that, to me, is not a good indication that she's actually dealing with the facts as she sees them.
No, but it's the same gutless approach that they took last night when they cut my microphone, right? I mean, we were laughing about it this morning. It's like, the only way that Danielle Smith can win a debate on Alberta independence is to cut the mic of the person supporting Alberta independence, right? I mean, that's the reality of it is they've got nothing to sell Alberta. The day that Alberta becomes independent, we get rid of federal income tax. We have a $50 billion a year fiscal capacity surplus, even after getting rid of federal income tax, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, everybody's reading the value of freedom, and they understand how much better off we're going to be outside of Canada.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, I think, this is perhaps the first time in history that a party has gone from federalist to potentially separatist. And the PQ was always a party of separation for Quebec. The Alberta, this party was never about, initially, it was never about separation. But clearly it has become that in the last couple of years.
Well,
And I think this is why people should be watching this.
The party is a reflection of its membership. And clearly, 85% of the members of this party support independence. And they need to acknowledge that, and they better figure out how they're going to deal with it, and they better figure it out quickly. There's no reason not to have a lot of the same excellent policies that they're moving forward. We're not talking about a wholesale change of government, but I do want her to appoint a Minister of Independence Preparedness and start getting Alberta ready to leave Canada. You want to send a message to Carney about how serious we are, that's the way to do it. Appoint a Minister of Independence Preparedness. Have that minister go down to Washington, meet with JP Morgan Chase and the big American banks. Tell them that Alberta's open for business and we want them to locate here. Set up a $500 billion line of credit secured by the Alberta oil and gas industry and our assets, so that the next time we have a downturn in the oil price, we have multi-billion dollar line of credit that we can operate against, so we don't have to go on bended knee to Ottawa saying, please, can we have some of our money back? And then be told by Ottawa to go screw ourselves. Enough is enough.
Well, I think Danielle Smith brought out everything she possibly could in terms of being a small C conservative tonight. She even quoted Ronald Reagan. I noticed that in terms of Alberta being a city on the hill, which of course Reagan used to talk about America being a city on the hill. So I think she did her best to talk to the base. Is that going to be enough?
If she wants Alberta to be a city on a hill, get us the hell out of Canada. Let's ditch the Westminster parliamentary system. Let's develop a real constitution with real checks and balances that protect the citizens of Alberta from the depredations of moronic politicians who think it's okay to lock us up in our houses and tell us how many friends we're allowed to have, et cetera, et cetera. It's time to get Alberta the hell out of Canada.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be watching this convention and probably agreeing with you, Jeff. So thanks so much for being with me tonight. And
always a pleasure, David. And here's looking forward to a free and independent Alberta.
And keep us updated tomorrow, because this is not yet over.
Oh, no. I'll let you know tomorrow how we did with the board of directors and fill you in further on what it means that we're now controlling the UCP. So, we'll talk later.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Okay, all the best. Okay, over and out. Okay, bye.
All the best.
Okay,
over
bye.
and out for now. I'm going to watch a bit more of that video with Danielle Smith.
Favor of free. The room is how many?
Now, the Sovereignty Act motion will also make it clear that these agencies will not enforce or prosecute Albertans defending their homes and families from intruders. I got a little tip for low-life criminals out there. If you don't want to get shot, don't break into someone's house. It's really that simple, isn't it? It really is. We want our great men and women in law enforcement and our justice system to spend their precious time and effort going after criminals, not farmers, not ranchers or sport shooters, nor Albertans defending their families and their homes. Imagine that, right? And speaking of taking a stand, how about taking a stand for our children? Yeah. As Premier, I want to assure every parent and grandparent here today that under no circumstances will we back down from defending Alberta's children. And that means banning graphic sexual images from our school libraries, full stop. And it also means using the Charter's notwithstanding clause to protect our children by restricting puberty blockers for minors and prohibiting gender reassignment surgery until a child reaches adulthood. Of course, we will also protect women and girls in sports so they aren't forced to compete with those who were born male. Yeah. And we will make sure that parents are notified and included in the decision to change their child's name or pronouns at school. Because parents are the primary caregivers and protectors of their children, and that is how it has been and will continue to be under a UCP government.
So clearly, Danielle Smith has said some fantastic things over the years for families and for people who support that legislation. And this is one reason I'm including that at the end of this. Don't sell Danielle Smith short on any of this, because she believes strongly in good conservative principles. And where do I stand on this? I'm going to leave that to you. I like Danielle Smith. I understand the motivation for Alberta separation. I'm going to leave that decision to you, but we're going to have that debate on this show, because that's what democracy is all about. And I think both of them are doing a fantastic job of expressing what's important for freedom. And freedom is what this show is all about. Thank you for watching today. I'll be back again tomorrow with more of the news you need. Thank you for sharing this station with your friends and family. Thank you for hitting that like button, because I tell you, we are fighting back in a way I've never had to before, because I'm going to keep this station on the air. I'm going to keep fighting for freedom. I'm going to keep fighting for justice and truth. And I am damn determined to resist this Carney government in any way possible as it encroaches upon our individual freedom. And it will continue to do that, mark my words. I'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. 10 a.m. This has been David Crayden, broadcasting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.